virtual foolishness, which is nonsense, into making something constructive and productive, because they're going to take over from us. And if they're going to take over, and if they are the future, what kind of future do we want, brothers and sisters? One that's virtual or one that's real?
And in order to make it real, we have to get hands-on, because the virtual world, the society's virtual world, which they are absolutely pushing on us, is taking our children. You know, if you combine now the rap music that you talked about, which rap music used to be conscious, but it has been usurped now, you know, and we have rap music that is absolutely denigrating women, denigrating men, you know, talking about thug life and absolutely being delinquents. If you mix that, combine that with the films of virtual reality that are blurring the lines between reality and virtual reality now, as we have just spoke about the heroes and those kind of films, that kind of genre, and you merge that again now with the consoles that we were talking about, the PSP. This is a cocktail for our youth that will absolutely put them in a mindset when they're out the road that I can do absolutely anything. So is it any wonder now that we are having 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds rolling up on one another and absolutely acting like heroes, acting like the characters in these war films, these war setting environment films, motion pictures, movies, games, but it's absolutely in a real setting. So they're actually taking people's lives.
Well, I'm thinking about.
Not only are they taking people's lives, but they're taking their peers' lives and not even flinching.
Yeah, and I think that yes, you're absolutely right. But I also think that because I think back to when I was a child and how we used to play cowboys and Indians or cops and robbers and stuff like that, and we used to do those things, but we didn't have access to the guns. And I think that's what makes a huge difference as well. The access to the weapons is so much easier now that's really what's made a huge difference, as well as, you know, having more of those so-called reality shows on television. It's the fact that people have more access to guns, to drugs and everything else. And I think that's another major point.
Access to guns is a huge point. But if you have the right mindset, access to guns doesn't produce killing on the streets.
Yeah.
So access to guns is something that needs to be looked at. But access to guns in the right mind, if we're in our right mind, won't produce the environment or the scenario that we have today with 11-year-olds rolling up on one another and plugging them.
Yeah, of course, because the moral, when you can hand someone a gun, and based on their mindset, it will determine what they'll do with it. And because our morals have been broken down, because our morals have been so completely eroded, because our morals have been destroyed, what's happened is that we don't even see one another as brother or sister, or as family, or as even as other human beings, because we don't really act like other people are human beings. Because as a human being, I feel, I cry, I grieve, and I mourn, you know, just like everybody else.
But how much of that not feeling like a human being is contributed to virtual reality? Because in virtual reality, when somebody dies, it's okay, end the game, start a new game, go on and live. Oh, I hear the children saying, oh, this one died. All right, start again, reboot, set up again, come again. There is no compassion in the PSP console gaming world. In the film world, when somebody dies, you don't grieve because it's a plaything. It's not real.
Yeah.
So how much of it is contributable to that? How much of it today, when the youths are going to funerals and they don't even grieve at the funerals?
Yeah.
They're just there. It's just like, you know, there's so and so over there. You know, how's it going, rude boy, or whatever. There is no. It's not like the funerals that we used to go to, or that we have been to, where, you know, people really, I'm not saying people don't grieve. Obviously, the family are upset, but generally, there is a lack of remorse or feeling that seems to me very synonymous with the games, playing of games, the console, the constant gaming, the constant plugged up to earphones, listening to this music that's washing over our mind, talking about thug life, and now I'm going to take out a punk over the other side of town.
Yeah, that's very true, because it's like in his book, Minister Farrakhan spoke in his book A Torchlight for America, and he said that the children nowadays are cold, and the reason why they're so cold is because they're not being reared by their mothers. He said that they're being reared by television or plastic bottles rather than the mother's breast and the breast
console
milk.
system.
That's right. So they're actually being nurtured by something else, the television, the games consoles, the iPods, all of those things, because we have iPods, but again, it's what you use it for.
I listen to Minister Farrakhan on mine.
Well done.
All praise is due to Allah for Minister Farrakhan on my iPod.
Yeah, that's right. And it's a real help. And I used to listen to the minister on my way to work in the morning just to balance my mind, because it was just such a horrible environment. But anyway, the fact is that our children are being nurtured and nourished by the mental and the mental messages the mental messages that are being given by the society. So when you look at TV shows, if you just look at a couple of the shows, The Simpsons, where they're a completely dysfunctional family, Homer is just a wreck, and Marge tries the best that she can, but it's just not happening. It's just a completely unbalanced family. If we look at, EastEnders, Depression, Coronation Street, all of these programs, although they can have good storylines in between or relevant storylines, that's debatable, and I ain't going to debate it. But they have those storylines once in a while. But at the end of the day, on a whole, it's just not for us. In order for us, listen, we need to eat the right food that we need in order for it to take us to where we need to go. So if I want to help to build a new way of life and a new world order, I've got to eat life and live fruits and proper food, rather than and proper television programs, rather than just spending my time watching cartoons and trivial shows, which isn't really going to help.
So stopping the killing goes down to the diet of what not only we physically eat, but what we spiritually eat, see, breathe.
Yeah.
And for our children to benefit, the parents have to benefit first.
That's right.
So therefore, if we want to take our children out of the career that they're on, based upon this society, the tell-lie vision, the Pied Piper, calling them away down this road, we have to get hands-on, brothers and sisters. We have to be absolute examples of that which we want them to grow up into, because the children are little versions of us. And we sometimes forget that. The children are little versions of us. And if we wash our hands of them and say it's the school's responsibility to teach the children, or it's this one's responsibility, that one's responsibility to do this. I heard a teacher on the TV say it's not my responsibility to be a social worker to the children. I believe it is. If you want to teach my child or our children who are coming from a damaged environment, you're going to have to be a social worker for them. You're going to have to sit down and hear what their concerns are in order to teach them. If you're going to say, well, that's not my role to be a social worker for them, you can't teach them then.
Yeah.
And we've lost before we start. As parents, we can't say, well, it's not my job to teach the children. As a parent, we've got to be teachers and social workers and parents and everything in between. If we love our children and we want to see them do better, we want to stop the killing, then we're going to have to take on these roles. Society's going to have to start to take on these roles. And we're seeing it with the killing of the young white boy. We're seeing a stepping up of